Hi there, my name is Sean Taylor and I'm part of the Forces Group, and I've been involved in franchising now for over 10 years. It actually tracks back a lot further than that, but I've actually owned and managed a franchise business for the last 10 years. So, I took that step 10 years ago, left paid employment, bought my own business, and certainly loved and enjoyed the highs and lows that follow of doing that. And if you're looking at franchising at the moment, you're going to be one of those persons that's looking and trying to assess what's maybe right for you, what's going to fit your personal circumstances, and there's so many different franchises out there. But in part of my role, I try and get myself out into the business world, and I spend time at conferences and talking to other businesses and talking to franchisees. And I was at a conference on Monday, and the person on stage was talking about mindset about being in business and how important it is. And there was a little section where he talked about shutting down the fear loop. Now, if you are looking to maybe invest, maybe buy a business, invest in a franchise, start your own business, one of the biggest things that's going to be holding you back is going to be fear. And shutting down this fear loop and giving you some practical steps to see whether you can shut down this fear, it could be really useful to you. And what this person articulates, and it really resonates with me, that we all fear fear. It's a natural reaction. It's part of our makeup to protect us. It's part of the mind plays. It's part of the mind. Our head's role is to instigate fear and to get our senses up and alert to protect ourselves. So actually you have to overcome this fear if you're ever going to take a step, whether you're going to take this initial step into franchising or buying your own business or setting up your own business. And when you're in business, there's going to be decisions to be made every day that will fill you with fear. But I think the thing to remember is it's natural. We all have it. It's normal. It's something that we all have to contend with. But it's how you deal with it. And our mind has a tendency to take fear and make it a little bit irrational. We tend to start having irrational thoughts. So in the case of maybe starting your own business or getting into franchising, the fear will be, what if it doesn't work? What if I lose my money? What if I lose my house? What if I lose my family? What could go wrong? And you start playing these things, and the natural defences come up. It gives you all the reasons why you can't do it, but there's so many reasons why you maybe should do it. But let's talk about the fear bits. So how do you deal with the fear? And understanding that some of your fear is irrational. It's your mind playing games. And once one little thought comes in, a second one, and it starts spiralling out of thought. One of the most important things to do is to probably write down all that stuff, all those thoughts that you are thinking, the fear, all the different fear factors that you're thinking. What could go wrong? What about this? What about that? Dump it down. They're all probably dumb thoughts. But get it onto paper. Don't think about it. Start writing down every little detail. I'm worried about this. What happens if this happens? What about this? What about that? The common thing. What about Brexit? Oh my word! All these things that are going to be playing on your mind. And as people that have taken that step, and I'm one of them, I've had to do this. When I left paid employment, what about this? How am I going to pay the mortgage? How am I going to do that? What about this? What about holidays? What about all these things that you have to bring into account? So the number one step, when you got this fear factor and trying to shut down the fear loop, number one, write it down. The sheer act of writing that down will start alleviating some of the thing that's built up in your brain. Your brain can only deal with a certain amount, and actually dumping things down. Something I've learned in business is get stuff down on paper, and it actually starts to alleviate the pressure. So write it all down. That starts the process. And once you start writing it down, once you start reading back to yourself, start crossing out the ones that you just think, these are just ridiculous, they're dumb, they're stupid. Cross them out. You have to make the concerted effort to read it and cross it out, and that will give you a slightly more reduced list. Now, that more reduced risk, now you can look at it in two ways. Each one that's left, it's can I control it or can I not control it? There'll be certain things that are within your control, there'll be certain things not. And the things outside of your control will be things like, there's lots of competition. Well, you can't really control how many people are in or are going to compete against you. What about Brexit? What about inflation rates? What about exchange rates? There's going to be lots of things that you can't control. But let's get back to the ones where you can control it. So you're going to bring your written list that's been crossed out, and a few have been crossed out, into now break it into two lists. What can you control and what can't you control? Okay, and look at it really carefully. There's plenty of things that are within your control. How many customers you win, what price you sell at. There's loads of things that are within your control, and there's certain things that are outside of your control. So once you've got those two lists, look at the first list. What can you control? And now what you need to do is to have break it down into, how can I prevent that from happening? What steps can I take to mitigate that happening? What happens if I run out of money? Well, have you got any working capital? So what can I do to prevent that happening? And then plan, what would you do if it did happen? So take those measures that you can control. What would you put in place to mitigate or prevent it happening? And then what plan, or how would you prepare if it did happen? What would the eventuality be? And then on the stuff you can't control, you have to go through it, and you actually have to take a conscious decision to ignore it, because you can't control things. Everyone's worried about Brexit at the moment. I don't worry about Brexit. Yes, I want it sorted, and all the kerfuffle that goes with it, it's a load of nonsense. But I'm not letting it affect my business. I'm not saying we're not doing this because of Brexit. You know, you have to drive things forward. I'm ignoring Brexit. I'm driving the business, ignoring Brexit. When Brexit happens, once we know what's going on, then we can work forward. But I can't see it impacting. We're not as if importing and exporting from Europe. But there's going to be wider connotations with Brexit. But this isn't a Brexit debate. This is about, if you want to take the next step to running your business, you have to overcome the fear factor, and you have to shut down this fear loop. So this is what I was talking about. Write these things down, start crossing off the ones that are irrational, and the ones that are left, decide what you can control, what you can do to mitigate it, and what you do in the event of it happening, and what can't you control. And you have to take the conscious decision to ignore it, get it out of your mind, because at the end of the day, you can't control it. So don't worry about things you can't control. And just to finish off, it was really interesting on this conference I was at, and the guy talking about this on stage was also a lady called Jo Fairley, who is the founder of Green and Black, and a very nice lady, very smart lady, and done very, very well. But she put a slide up, and she talked about how she had to dive off the diving board. And this is all an analogy of starting her business. She was at the top of a diving board, looking down, worried, scared, as we all do. If you're 25 meters up or whatever it is, looking down, it's scary. And she had to take that step. But she said, I didn't want to look back. I wanted to dive in. I wanted to see what it's like. I didn't want to look back and wonder what it would have been like. I had to take that step. So she dived off the diving board. She might have gone through her fear factors and ticked them all off. How many people have dived off a diving board and killed themselves? Probably not many, but I'm sure there's lots of injuries. But you know what I mean? It's really interesting talking, when you hear other people talk about it. So look, I hope that helps. I've whistled on a little bit, but I just thought it was really interesting. If you're thinking of buying a franchise, getting into your own business, you've got to overcome this fear factor. You've got to learn to manage your mind. Mindset is huge. Fear can be irrational, so let's try and make it a little bit more rational rather than irrational, and make some conscious decisions. Anyway, I hope that helps, and maybe speak soon.